Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 48, where I'll be talking with Ruth Zuckerman, a co-founder of SoulCycle and Flywheel, both wildly successful companies that innovated the studio cycle movement. Ruth pioneered these boutique fitness industries by creating a studio with a pay-per-class structure, modeling them after the dance studio she would frequent when she was pursuing her dance career. Over the last decade with these companies, she came to realize that her passion is greater than simply cycling or fitness. Her mission is to connect people to each other, as well as to find their inner strength and empower them to carry the positive, powerful attitude they have on the bike and into their lives and their careers. She speaks around the country, inspiring people to get unstuck and find new paths and new passion for a successful second, third, or even fourth act in their career. Ruth is following her own advice and left Flywheel at the end of 2018 to pursue her next great adventure. John Lennon said, "Life is what happens to you when you are busy making other plans." Everything she was working on came to a sudden halt when the pandemic hit the US in March of 2020. Refusing to abandon her community, she came up with the latest venture, True Community, as a way to keeping her 20 years and still growing community connected virtually. Through fitness classes, seminars, discussions on health and wellness, she and her team encouraged sharing thoughts by providing a safe place in which to do it. Ruth lives in New York and is close to her grown daughters. Her memoir, Riding High, How I Kissed SoulCycle Goodbye, co-founder Flywheel, and Build the Life I Always Wanted, was published in October of 2018. Hello and welcome to Ruth. How are you, Ruth?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you on this podcast and this delicious conversation to learn more about you, because you've done so many interesting, magical things in your time, and all that drive and passion that you have in pursuing your career and building companies on so many different levels is really interesting to me, which is why I want to really delve into this conversation with you. What is it you feel that you believe about yourself, and do you feel it defines who you are in how you present yourself to the world?
I think it does. I'm a very passionate person, and when I find something that moves me, something that I'm really interested in, I go for it. And it's interesting because, obviously I ended up in the spin world, and spinning became my thing, but it really taught me about, looking back and observing everything I did that led up to it, and how whatever I did before I got to the spin world influenced it. And I always find that very interesting. I started out as a dancer, and I started taking dance classes when I was 8 years old. And I very quickly became passionate about it and decided that was my calling, and I'm going to be a professional dancer ultimately. Well, it didn't work, and it was quite a blow. And, I geared my entire focus toward that goal. And I graduated college and moved to New York City, started auditioning, and did well. And I was really good, but not good enough. And I just assumed, okay, well, that's done. But the truth is, my training in dancing and the persistence you need and the discipline you need all helped me formulate who I was going to be in my next chapter. And dance had a huge influence on the way I approach spinning. So, when we're feeling frustrated and we want to give up, it's important to look back on what we have done and know that it will help us figure out what's next.
Yeah, there's lots of little nuggets in life and experiences that we come across and we go through that I think are real wisdom pieces
Yes.
that lead us through that, and we can enhance on, if you will,
Yes, for
later on
sure.
as we get older, as we get a few more years under our belt and have these experiences, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is your calling?
Honestly, my calling today is the same calling that I've probably had for a very long time, which is simply making people feel better about themselves. And I discovered in my very first spin class that I took as a rider that there was something about this experience, this 45-minute class, that made me feel better about myself. In 45 minutes, I felt empowered, I felt inspired, and I felt that I could get through the rest of my day and conquer whatever challenges came my way. As I got more and more into it and started doing it more and more regularly, and I saw what it was doing for me, all I ultimately wanted to do was kind of share that wealth with as many people as possible. And so I did just that on the bike, from the bike, for many, many years through the course of 2 national businesses. And then I wrote a book. And the truth is, the book was just another vehicle, if you will, for me to use as my platform and inspire people through my words. And then the book led to keynote addresses and speeches all across the country, where every time I would start my keynote, I would say to the group, whoever I was speaking to, that, I'm going to set you up as if we were in a class right now. And I would describe to them what it felt like to walk into my spin class. And then I would say, and I hope to accomplish today for you everything I wanted to accomplish in every spin class that I taught, which was to let people know that it's okay to feel like they failed. It's okay to have setbacks, that these are all learning opportunities for us, and that we're all a lot stronger than we think we are, and that we all have an enormous amount of resilience that we might not think we have. And with every learning opportunity, with every setback, that resilience gets stronger. And it all kind of works together and allows us to ultimately and hopefully find happiness in who we are and what we do.
That's really powerful.
I think so. And it's really true. It's about being your authentic self. And I know we probably hear that a lot, but there really is something to it, because when we allow ourselves to be real and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, which, by the way, is hard for everybody, I feel that that's when we connect with each other. And, just to bring this all full circle, having living through this pandemic for all of us, it has certainly, among many things, shown us that as human beings, we need to connect more than ever. Right. And again, the way I have found that we connect most successfully is by being our true selves and not putting on airs and not trying to be someone that we're not, and feeling good about who we are.
That's a challenge in itself, right?
Absolutely. It is. It's an everyday challenge.
It's a challenge not only from your own inner expectations that one often has, just like you did, of really excelling and having that drive and determination to be a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, for some reason, that little bit of extra percentage that was needed for that good enough just didn't pan out, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So is that what we are set up on in life? Is this what it looks like, that either you make it or you don't? Is it that 5% in between that we're all oscillating with and striving to and from?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I will say specifically, and I could be wrong, but specifically when we're talking about fields that are ultra competitive, like the arts, and dance or theater or whatever it is, that obviously sets the odds and makes it even harder to accomplish what you might have set out to accomplish. And for me, especially in the world of modern dance, and I was a modern dancer, I mean, the resources are so limited. And if those people that actually can make a living and support themselves as professional dancers, I mean, are so few and far between. So I think it depends what field you choose. But it's an interesting question. And I think we're always striving for more. And I think that as we get older, our perspective gets a little better in terms of what we really need to feel successful.
It's kind of coming back to that same place of accepting ourselves.
Yes.
And being
exactly.
okay with ourselves. And like you said, it's okay to not have a perfect day. It's okay to trip and fall. It's okay to excel one day and not another.
Exactly. And it's called self-empathy. Self-empathy is a big thing that I learned in terms of my growth, my emotional, my mental growth. Understanding that concept was incredibly helpful, and that doesn't mean feeling sorry for yourself. It means allowing yourself to experience, maybe one step forward, two steps back, whatever it is. It's allowing for mistakes and allowing for moments that feel like failure. I hate the word failure because it's so negative, and the reality is failure really teaches us a lot. Feeling empathy for yourself and giving yourself allowance to use those opportunities to just learn and get better.
Such a big learning curve, though.
Yes.
Such a big learning curve to get from point A to point B, especially because we're nurtured in such strong environments for that push to be more than 100%, because 100 just isn't good enough.
Right.
It just takes me down a bit of a rabbit hole of where did it all come from? Where did all these expectations and judgments really come from? And how is the world positioned this way? What happened?
In this day and age, I mean, we're just bombarded by social media and technology, and we've created this world where everything is just right there, and it seems to present a lot of pressure for people to strive for a certain quote unquote norm that's being presented to us that really isn't a norm. You know what I'm saying? And social media especially is really tricky, and it's caused, as we know, a lot of problems for people and their mental and emotional health in terms of setting these strange standards. And I know for me, I really try to limit my exposure to social media, and that's tricky for me because I kind of have to put myself out there for my own success. And so there's kind of this love-hate relationship with it. And I'm sure you find that too. I mean, I think all of us do. Our priorities kind of easily get a bit out of proportion when we're fixating a little too much on that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the place of balance, ultimately, is what we're all craving.
Yes.
And I think, be it from childhood to excelling beyond the 100%, to being in this pandemic, we're striving for that balance of it's human nature to have the human interaction.
Absolutely.
We're built this way. We're wired this way. So to have the balance of it being okay, I want to say, with what the external world is saying, but yet there has to be that true nurturing, which comes to that place of self-empathy that you mentioned.
Yes.
It's all in alignment. It's all encompassing as one. But I feel that in the world that we live in, especially now, we've siloed all these components, which to me doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair, from the education system to the medical system. Everything is separate.
Yes, so true. And of course, we live in a very materialistic world, and the focus on money and the importance of money and having possessions. Again, I'm really, as you and I were chatting before we started, I'm really hoping that the pandemic helps us gain a better perspective on what our priorities really should be. And look, we all get caught up in it. I absolutely do. What an opportunity, with all the horrors that this pandemic has presented to us. Obviously, I am a believer that everything happens for a reason, but I draw the line when it's something like a pandemic or, any situation where people are suffering. But let it be a lesson for us in terms of what's really important and what we really need to make us happy. And by the way, it never ends up being money, ever.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. It's not about the money.
No.
It's about what the money can provide us.
Yes.
At the end of
yes, exactly. But even more than that, it's about our relationships with other people and laughing with each other and smiling at each other. And again, simple things like that.
Yeah. I think we were all meant to be wired and have a life of simplicity, ultimately, at the end of the day, to truly step into a place of oneself, which is where all the love really comes from. And I know maybe that's an overused term and word, but if we don't have it within us, then we're going to be pretty hard pressed to give it to anybody else.
Exactly. And, you were asking me before about my calling. And for me, and I know this sounds very grandiose, but I can't tell you how many times I would teach a spin class, and after the class, a writer in the class would come up to me and say, I just want you to know that coming to these classes has changed my life. Now, that's a huge statement. However, I get it because it changed my life. But when I hear that, I could never begin to place a monetary value on that, on the power of hearing that, and nothing would make me feel better or happier. And so that's why I do what I do. Yeah.
And it's powerful to hear it, but to recognize you're the one to have took people on that journey. It is really powerful when those words vibrate within your entire being, be it through your eardrums of, I really did that. Like, it's very empowering. Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah. So no wonder you have continued doing this through 2 businesses. And no doubt, I think, building a third as we go through this pandemic.
Not sure about that. I really, I did start a small online platform so that I could teach classes during the pandemic. I did it for myself as well as for my community. And I just wanted to kind of keep a hold on everybody and let everybody connect together on Zoom and see each other and ride together. And I tried and am trying to recreate that as best as I can under the circumstances. Honestly, post-pandemic, when the day comes that we really are back to a more normal life, I'm not sure what I will do with it. So I'm really, obviously staying present is another challenge that we all face, but I'm really trying hard to stay present right now and just enjoy it for now, and not worry about what's next in terms of spin class, because I don't know the answer. None of us do. And the industry has really been turned upside down, and it'll be very interesting to see what does happen. And I don't have the answers yet. So I feel like because of that, I kind of have to stay present. I'm not sure there's any other choice.
Which is an interesting journey in itself, of staying present and staying in that place of self-empathy and self-compassion. As you go on your own journey through this pandemic and recovering through it, I think your resolutions and your needs and your desires will unfold maybe a little bit more acutely or quickly than other people. Because you've been through that process and you know what your intentions were with the other programs and businesses that you have built. And just like the businesses that you have built successfully, it's fulfilling that need. And what we know, and what I feel with many successful individuals, they're fulfilling a need within themselves first.
Yes.
And then amplifying that out, because then we know we can be of service to others, right?
Exactly. Yes. And I think that moving forward, I assume I'll just continue with my calling and continue to kind of spread these messages in as many different ways as I can. Will they continue to be spread from the bike? I don't know. But there are many, I've learned through my book and speaking engagements that there are many different ways I can kind of get that word out. And so I presume I will just continue to do that.
Do you feel there's an element of reflection that's happening now, especially with the pandemic? Do you feel that it takes you perhaps back to your dancing days, just as your dancing days have influenced you in your business world? Do you think that's where you will go to get to the baseline and center in who you are as we come out of this pandemic and see what is next for you? Where will you go to find that?
I think that I am constantly working on that through my personal therapy. And by the way, I'm a huge proponent of therapy. It has literally gotten me through so much and has enabled me to be successful and do everything I've done. So honestly, because of my therapy, I'm always exploring, I'm always reflecting, I'm always learning about my upbringing, my relationship with my parents, and how I was formed, and how that influences everything, and where can I make changes? Where can't I make changes? I mean, all of those questions really mold us when we're moving forward. And I can't promote it enough, the importance of being, and again, we're going right back to vulnerability, the importance of allowing yourself to open up enough to explore these things. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength. And I know so many people who go to therapy and don't make any changes because, yes, they're physically showing up, but they're not showing up mentally. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not, but it is so worth it in spades to go there and learn about yourself so that you can understand what your calling is, what works for you, what doesn't, what kind of people you should be with. I had a really bad experience with some business partners, and often when I speak at business graduate schools, I get a very common question, which is, how do you know you pick the right business partner? And I wish I had the answer, and there's no formula, and there's no guarantee. But what I do know is what I gleaned from my experiences. And it's a perfect example of how I had to go back to my past. And I honestly had to go back to my relationship with my parents to understand why I ended up with the partners that I ended up with and why it didn't work. And again, that was a retrospective thing when I was in it and I was going through the hardships and the struggles of trying to work through this partnership. I didn't have these insights and there was no way it was going to end up working. So anyway, just a real life example of the importance of understanding who we are and why. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's very brave. It's very courageous to go through that process of therapy, I believe.
it is.
But in the same token, wouldn't you want to be your best self while you are here?
I would think so. Yes. And again, we all know it's a work in progress. Our entire life is a work in progress, right? Hopefully we never stop exploring and never stop delving in and working on ourselves, because it's the only way we'll progressively get happier and happier with our lives.
Absolutely. But it's living with that intention. I think there are many people and many situations and scenarios that life presents us, be it from the convenience in living in a metropolitan city and being able to take out food and all those convenience things that we have available to us, is what is the intention that you want your day to unfold?
Yes.
What is the intention you have for that moment?
Exactly.
Like for you, your intention, from what I understood, is to have that passion and have that drive and share that with others so they can feel empowered into that space.
Exactly.
So to come back full circle into that spinning class that you went to, what was it that happened in that moment for you? Yes, you felt empowered. Yes, you felt that overflow of energy, I want to say, that put you in that space of you are in the driving seat. And it doesn't matter where you've been. What was it that happened in that moment? And do you feel it was just for you, or do you feel it happened as a collective, like everybody in the class?
I think it was a combination of all of those things. And I know that it wasn't just my experience. And because of that, spinning is everywhere. I think, a lot of people had the same experience. And my view of it is that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You used the phrase, you're in the driver's seat, and you're on a bike seat, and you're on this bike that physically goes nowhere. And because it's not going anywhere, you have the privilege of closing your eyes, because you're not going to fall off and you're not going to crash into anything. So you close your eyes, but then you're, exerting and doing this very powerful exercise physically, and you're strengthening yourself, you're empowering yourself physically, but mentally and emotionally also, because you have the privilege of closing your eyes, hearing what's hopefully a very inspiring playlist soundtrack to your 45-minute journey, and tapping into memories. You'll hear a song, let's say, from 15 years ago, and suddenly you're back in that place where you were when you heard that song, and that might bring up something for you. So there's so much going on in these 45 minutes. And I think it all kind of contributes to this end result that you feel when you dismount that bike. And when I took my very first spin class, I was going through a trauma in my life. I was navigating through a divorce with 6-year-old twin girls. I was leaving a marriage and choosing to become a single mom with two 6-year-olds. And that was really scary. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. This was obviously a huge decision. And this little exercise, this 45-minute journey daily, is what got me through my divorce. And I thought, wow, that's a big statement. That's pretty powerful. What can I do with this? So I think that's why the spin class really works.
Yeah, it is really empowering to hear that you can make the connection between what's going on with the mental brain and what's going on with the physical body, which
Exactly.
kind of puts me in a space, as you describe it, of almost like a meditation.
Exactly. And
Right?
that's why when we started Soul Cycle in the very beginnings, we were saying yoga on a bike. And obviously it's not literally yoga on a bike, but it was about identifying that meditative quality while you're spinning. And I wanted to mention something else, which you drew attention to. You mentioned, the feeling of everybody else in the room cycling
Yes.
next to you. That's a huge component of the experience as well, is the community that is built at every spin studio, in every spin class, because there's quite a feeling of power when you're hearing the spinning wheels of, let's say, 50 bikes that are surrounding you. And you're kind of not only hearing it, but emotionally you are all in this experience together, and then that feels very supportive. So the community, I can't overestimate the importance of the community that is built within this experience. And then sure enough, what would end up happening actually in both my businesses was eventually your entire life kind of centers around your spin class, and your entire social life becomes people you met in spin class, and you might meet your partner in spin class, or you might form this incredibly significant relationship with your instructor. It's such a powerful experience on so many levels.
It sounds like it. It
Yes.
sounds like it. Well, if it can support you through a divorce, I think it's powerful is an understatement of the word.
Exactly.
Really.
Yes. I mean, I have seen through my riders, we all get very close and connected, and so many of them would share with me whatever trauma they were going through, whether it was a death in the family, or a divorce, or losing a job, or sickness. I mean, everything. I've heard everything. And of course, it's so gratifying to hear that in some way I can help, or another instructor can help at my studio, or, it's, again, just incredibly gratifying.
Yeah. It's ultimately being of service, right?
Yes. Yes.
Which is what I'm hearing from you, of having those words echo in your body and in your vibrational being of who you are, of you changed my life.
Yes. Yes.
It's humbling. What else can I do to support these people? Also, from a perspective of what you're doing now by still supporting your community online, because how else can I serve them?
Exactly. Exactly. And I always say, I am, yes, I've been successful as an entrepreneur, but I started as a spin instructor in this world. And at my core, that's what I do. I'm an instructor.
Well, I would kind of say guide, but right?
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately we're cultivating a space, we're cultivating a place
Yes.
where people feel safe, and be it in a spin class, or be it in a yoga studio, or be it in a meditation through the pods that you're wearing through your ears as you go through a walk through nature. It's been a collective, being part of that energy, be it you can see it or
Yes.
not, because we know we can feel it 100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which kind of takes us a little bit full circle into this pandemic situation. Yes, there is an element of physical isolation, but energetically, we know we're connected.
Yes. And we can't help ourselves because we need it. So we figure it out, in the best possible way that we can, given the restrictions.
Absolutely. So tell me, with all this magic that you have created And still, I feel is bubbling and growing and expanding within you, from the businesses to the books to the speaking to the supporting others. How else are you feeling inspired to support other individuals? What's next for Ruth? I'm excited.
I'll be very honest. I am in the midst of a project that I am developing with a few other people. It's still in the works and I can't really talk about it yet. But what I can say to you, I feel very hopeful about it and I think it will happen. But what I want to say about it is, as I said before, it will be another vehicle for me to get my story out and inspire people. And it has let's just say it will have a much wider reach than anything I've had thus far. And so for that reason, I'm very excited about it, because that's what I want to continue to do is tell my story, inspire people, let them learn through my mistakes, and know that there is a path to happiness, to understanding who we are as individuals, and finding our passion. And one thing, I just thought of this, one thing that I try to include in every speaking engagement I do is to tell people, to point out to people that I was 48 years old when I started SoulCycle, and I was 52 when I started Flywheel. And people seem to really appreciate that little factoid, because again, it gives people hope. I mean, how many people do we know who feel that they're stuck in jobs that they don't like, and feel that their time has passed? I mean, it hasn't. Yeah. You're never too old. And I can't tell you from my experience how many people came through our doors as riders in spin class, people who were in the finance world, people who were practicing lawyers, practicing doctors, who literally wanted to give up their careers to be a spin instructor. I mean, suddenly they asked if they could come into our training program and learn to be a spin instructor. I mean, that to me was incredible. These are careers obviously that people had worked on for a very long time, but at, more advanced ages, people in their 40s, early 50s, they decided it wasn't doing it for them and they wanted to try something else. And I saw people follow that through and be a lot happier. So it's important, and it's never too late.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I have taken from this conversation, learning more about you, is your bravery and courage.
Thank you.
Because as you shared through your story of making a decision to be a single mom of twin girls and not knowing what the future is going to look like. So that bravery has transformed into a courage that I think other people recognize. They see it through your actions. But I think the biggest thing is they feel it.
I hope so.
From the community that you build as an instructor, but also the online piece through the books and the multiple speaking engagements that you have done, is they feel that resonance of courage and lean on you for that courage. And just like that one woman that you shared said, you changed her life. So that courage was obviously lacking in some area of her life, not to be able to take that step forward in whatever element it did change her life. So I think it's really important to not only continue what you're doing, which I don't think you would stop,
never,
which is good, but to continue to share it with others, because I think we often get caught in our stuff sometimes, but in the same token, not recognizing that little 5% society has taught us that you're not good enough, almost good enough, but not good enough. That 5%, I think, is the courage that people need. And people like you showcase that so beautifully. So people can tap into that and enhance their own life and look at their own purpose and intention for what they want to bring.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think it's also important for everyone to know that who I am today and the courage you talk about and the strength that I might exhibit to somebody only came because I have had my moments of incredible pain. And when I say that, you know, we all have. And despite our demographic, despite what kind of upbringing we've had, I grew up in a very comfortable home. And throughout my life, I've been offered a lot of great opportunities. I mean, just my parents paid for me to go to college. I mean, and I will never not appreciate that. But that being said, we all have our pain. And I just have to say in this moment, I'm sitting here thinking about the Harry and Meghan interview, which I think so many of us watched. And I walked by a newsstand the other day, and I just quickly glanced at one of the headlines that characterized Meghan as a drama queen. And I thought, wow, why would anyone say that? I mean, who are we to judge her and what her experience felt like for her? And I just think it's an interesting, obviously current example of someone who had the courage to get up there and talk about what it felt like for her. Why would we judge that or doubt that, you know? And I think it's so important for us to know that we all have our moments of pain. And, you know, the positive note is that we can use it and we can build strength through it. And God knows it took a lot of strength for the two of them to do what they did in terms of changing their lives. So
absolutely,
I think that's an important message.
It is, but also coming to the perspective that what you need is ultimately within you.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So using the intention behind why you're going to spin class or why you want to have an interview with Oprah and share all of that. What is the underlying intention behind that? What is the intention behind the spin class? What's the intention behind being a better person? What's the intention behind going to therapy? Because there is a great reason that's embedded within us. But are we courageous enough to go to that space and look at it?
Yes. And you know what, Niranjan, maybe when the pain gets so bad, maybe that's the moment when we find the courage to explore why.
Possibly. Using your own discernment, I think, is so key. Because be it from this pandemic or any other life experiences you've had, from the relationships you've had as business partners or anybody, using your internal compass, your own discernment of what feels right. Because there would have been that little something within you said, I don't know about this one. You might want to think about this one once again. So tapping into that, because I truly feel we have all of that within us. We often seek external validation, but what is it we're truly seeking is within us. I truly believe that.
Completely agree. Yes.
Ruth, this has been such a pleasure.
For me too. Thank you.
I loved this conversation and all these nuggets of wisdom that you have dropped. and shared with us. So powerful. And I really am excited to hear what is this what is this big venture that you're working on to extend your empowerment and passion and drive for other people so they can be their whole selves wholeheartedly.
I promise to keep you posted.
I will keep you to that.
Okay, deal.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.